What is going on, guys? Welcome in. Farzine Vasugian here with you for another episode of the Chief Zone podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all having a great Monday afternoon, or Monday morning, depending where you are. It's still Monday morning for me. Of course, I am over in Las Vegas. Went to the Chiefs and Raiders game. Apologies for not doing a podcast last night. Got stuck in the good old Vegas post-game traffic. I did do a short live stream on my Facebook page. So for those of you who saw it on my Facebook page, which is where a majority of my followers are, you guys were able to catch that there. Give you guys my quick thoughts on there. I'll definitely expand and go into the game in depth. I know it's a day late, but hopefully this will still suffice and you guys will still enjoy this nonetheless. I'll give you guys my perspective, what I saw at the game, just my experience there, and talk about the Chiefs and just where they are right now at 7-0. Right now, the only undefeated team in the NFL, and got a little bit of help in the AFC. So very good to see Kansas City continuing their winning ways. Again, not the prettiest, but boy, it was another good team win. Offense did enough. Defense really came through once again. Maybe their best moment of the season. And they're unbeaten. They're the only unbeaten team in football. Also, some breaking news today. The Chiefs have acquired a new defensive end. They went after Josh Uche from the New England Patriots. He is now part of Kansas City's defensive front there. That's going to be very interesting to see what the Chiefs do with him. And I have some thoughts on that with the Chiefs adding Uche. It's worth mentioning right now that Joshua Uche, he was inactive for yesterday's game against the Jets, which I will get into that one later. That was pathetic. So he was already on the move, and there's a strong possibility the Chiefs and the the Chiefs and the Patriots. It's possible they already agreed on this move verbally. Yes, at some point yesterday or maybe over the weekend. So we'll get into all of that as we go on. Appreciate you guys joining me live. Wow. On a Monday early afternoon. A lot of people watching live. Hey, if I have some awkward pauses, bear with me. My voice is raspy. For those listening on the podcast version, yeah, I swear it's me. I lost my voice at the game. So if you hear awkward pauses like that, it's because I'm getting sips of water in. That way I can get through the damn podcast. I'm going to try my best here. I want to make sure I get to some of the other Week 8 action because there are some things definitely worth talking about on this podcast as well. So again, pardon all the awkward pauses you hear, but that will be a thing on this podcast nonetheless. Okay, let's get into it. Props to all the Chiefs fans in this one. I know Chiefs fans have been strong in all these road games. I went to the Chiefs and Raiders game last year. It seemed about 50-50. This was not 50-50. You saw far more red than you saw black and silver. And I love the colors black and silver. I really do. I also love the color red. But there was far more red in the stands than black and silver. I mean, this is Kansas City's house. Andy Reid, he has the most wins of any head coach in that stadium. That's insanity. Obviously, 6-0 now at Allegiant Stadium, including Super Bowl 58. And you're 7-0 on the season, so that's always got to feel good. And the whole thing, and I know I haven't seen the game yet, but I have seen clips of it online. And I went back and watched some big highlights just to see Kevin Harlan and Trent Green, their reactions during the game. But I didn't even notice this. So there was somebody who dressed up as Kermit the Frog and also brought a Kermit the Frog puppet. Not repetitive at all, and very, very original too. So I guess that was the thing for some Raiders fans. That's interesting. Obviously, that whole thing didn't age well. The Chiefs, they're playing football. The Raiders are playing with puppets in their training camp and practices. That's the difference between these two teams right now. That's why the Chiefs are where they're at. And the Raiders are, once again, shocker, the bottom of the AFC West. And listen, I think they've got a great piece right there, a really great young football player in Brock Bowers. The Chiefs did figure him out in the second half. I don't think he caught a pass in the second half until that garbage time touchdown drive they had. That was the only time he got involved with the offense. And I think with experience, he's going to get better. But I do think he's going to be a thorn in Kansas City side for years to come. I really do. So Kansas City definitely needs to find a way to combat that, because whether they think it's someone through the draft or maybe a youngster that could be available in free agency, someone's got to be able to cover tight ends real well. I know that's been a weakness of Kansas City's defense, one of the very, very, very few weaknesses on Kansas City's defense. But you know, right now it's not a big thing to worry about, but could be something to consider with Kansas City's defense in the future, because Brock Bowers is a guy they've got to worry about for quite some time. Yeah, we'll get into the Uche game, or the Uche story, and I see you guys' comments on that. We'll definitely get into that. As far as the Raiders Chiefs game goes, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that game. How you guys felt? Patrick Mahomes, not a bad game from him. 27 of 38, 262 yards, a couple of touchdowns, and a pick. The pick was obviously tipped, and the Raiders got it all the way inside the 5. That's where things got a little concerning there, because you thought the Raiders were going to go and take the lead, and the second half was gonna, turn into a dogfight. That was my thought right there. Now, I'm not saying I was going to write off Kansas City's defense, but when you have the ball inside the 5 to start a drive, you have to score, right? Wrong. Chiefs defense once again. Stout run defense. This might be the best defensive performance we've seen from Kansas City in a game this year, especially against the run. Alexander Mattison, 14 carries for 15 yards. Are you kidding me? That is damn near close to 0 yards per carry. As a team, the Raiders ran 21 times for 33 yards. That is less than 1 yard per carry. So I was really surprised the Raiders continued to run for as much as they did. Their longest run of the game was 7 yards. Zamir White had 2 carries for negative yardage, minus 1 yard. And that's how bad the Raiders' run defense was against Kansas City. Hey, listen, the Raiders' run defense has already been very bad. The Chiefs' run defense even better. And that was just a complete mismatch. It's almost like, listen, I told you guys, didn't I tell you guys in last week's podcast and during the 3 keys that the run defense is going to be big? It's almost like Antonio Pierce was just completely oblivious to the fact that the Chiefs defense was good. Because Gardner Minshew, I thought, had a somewhat of a solid game, 24 of 30, 209 yards, a couple of touchdowns, no picks, did have the fumble, was sacked 5 times. But it's not like Gardner Minshew looked like he was a quarterback on a 2-6 team. He actually was doing some things to hurt this Kansas City defense. And I know they're missing Jalen Watson, Najee Johnson. He went out under the concussion protocol, but it's not like this Raiders offense was not able to get anything going. And I get it. When you're inside the 5, you expect to punch it in, but it just wasn't working for you all game long. And as soon as the Chiefs got that third down stop, I said to myself, the Raiders are going for it. There's no way in hell they're going to settle for a field goal. And of course, they come out, no one in the backfield, just Gardner Minshew by himself in shotgun. Now, what is the golden rule on 4th down? Do not take the sack. Do not take a sack. Do not throw the ball away. And what happens? The Chiefs get a sack. Karlaftis gets in there, forces penetration. Turk Wharton goes and takes him down. The momentum just completely shifted in that game. The players on the field, that was a big moment for that defense. You could tell the energy changed on the field. Raiders fans were just completely dejected during that play. And while I mentioned Raiders fans, I was surrounded by a few Raiders fans. They were all pretty cool. There was one guy in the crowd who I was sitting next to. By the way, I was sitting front row right behind the visiting team's tunnel. So that was kind of a cool experience getting to see the players and coaches go in and out of the tunnel there. And the Chiefs actually got a picture of my family and I because we were holding Super Bowl flags and whatnot. And that was on their website. So that was really cool to see that there. But this Raiders fan is sitting next to me. When I tell you guys that this person whined over everything, he was bitching and moaning over every single thing. Let me give you an example. That roughing the passer call on Patrick Mahomes, by the way, 1,000% textbook roughing the passer penalty. Patrick Mahomes took 4 or 5 steps right after the hit. Pardon me 1 second. I got to fix this window. Give me 1 second. Okay. So the Venetian, for whatever reason, there's a broken window here where the wind is actually coming in, and I have to put the chair kind of back to shut that little area, the hole where some of the wind's coming in. Anyway, so Mahomes takes 4 to 5 steps. So clearly the ball's out of his hands. And the defender for the Raiders, I don't remember who it was, is looking right at Mahomes. You can see it on one of the replays. He's looking right at Mahomes. And he goes and knocks him down. And I'm seeing people say, oh, Mahomes sold that. Mahomes isn't even paying attention to the defender. Mahomes is looking at the play where he threw the ball. He's not looking at a defender coming after him. He took 4 to 5 steps. At that point, there's no reason to even touch a quarterback at that point. But he goes with his chest, bumps into Mahomes. Of course, those big pass rushers are going to knock down any quarterback. I don't care how big or how tough you are, unless you're the size of Andre the Giant, which Mahomes, he's a strong and big dude for a quarterback compared to other quarterbacks. But I mean, any quarterback's going to fall down in that situation there. And this guy next to me is constantly shouting "pussy" and saying the ref fixes in. Dude, that is literally roughing the passer. They showed 3 replays of it in slow-mo and in real speed. It was complete roughing the passer. Like, I don't know how you can even bitch about that. Here's another example of this guy next to me. And by the way, none of the other Raiders fans were complaining. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, that's a penalty. Remember the offside call on DeAndre Hopkins? Who, by the way, of course, made his debut, and I'll get into that shortly. The ref threw the flag, and he's already complaining. He doesn't even know what the flag is, and he's complaining, saying the fix is in and blah, blah, blah. And then when it was DeAndre Hopkins offside, he's like, oh okay, yeah, that was the right call. How do you even know that's the right call? You can't even see that from especially when you're sitting front row in the corner. It's kind of hard to see from that angle anyway. So how do you even know? Josh Williams got called for the softest late hit out of bounds penalty when the guy flopped. That was a flop. But again, I've told you guys many times, bad calls happen. So you just got to deal with that sometimes. I think it's hilarious that my whole point with this, I think it's hilarious that people are selling themselves. They're so convinced that there is like some referee fix with the Chiefs. They're selling this narrative to themselves so hard. I commend fans who are committed to this kind of energy here. But again, I keep asking the same question. If you truly believe this shit, why are you not betting on the games? I mean, you're in Vegas after all. If I was so convinced that officiating had a major role in specifically helping one team, I would be betting so much money on games. It's not even funny. But again, people don't want to do that because suddenly they're not so confident. That's really what's going on. Don asked a good question. If he thinks it's fixed, why is he watching? I'm gonna one up that question for Don. If he thinks it's fixed, why are you paying so much money to sit front row at Allegiant Stadium? I think everyone knows it's not a cheap ticket to go to Allegiant Stadium, especially the closer you are. But what do I know? Let's go back to the game. So obviously I mentioned the Chiefs defense. They came through with that awesome goal line stop, and that was where just momentum shifted everywhere across the field in the stadium. That's where the tomahawk chop started. Everyone went nuts over that. Kareem Hunt and Max Crosby went at it a little bit, which is pretty funny. But then they dapped it up. It's always funny how that works with NFL players. You can talk shit and bark at each other, and then you dap it up afterwards immediately. So that was a really cool moment there. But the Chiefs, they went out there, made up for that error there, and they found a way to continue to put up points on the scoreboard, putting up 10 points in the fourth quarter. The Raiders got a garbage time touchdown. They had opportunities. The Raiders had opportunities to win the game, but the goal line stop, the fumble from Minshew in the second half, those were the difference makers, 100%. And it was nice to see Xavier Worthy get in there. I thought Xavier Worthy had a bit of a difficult game. Hey, there was one drop from Worthy I actually did not think was a drop. I thought it was a reception and then a fumble out of bounds. You guys remember? It was right in front of the end zone. It was like maybe inside the 5 or maybe inside the 10. Do you guys remember where it was in his hands, but then it went out of bounds and the referees called it incomplete? I thought it looked like a fumble. I've not had a chance to go and watch that part back. I will at some point, just won't be anytime soon. I thought that was a catch and a fumble for a first down, but they didn't call it that. Yeah, a couple of you guys agreeing with me. Yeah, that's just what I thought. So I don't know, just kind of seemed weird to me, but that's what I saw from my vantage point. Again, it's always hard when you're at the games, especially depending where you're sitting. Certain angles are just you're not able to see certain things as much as people always ask me, why do you not go to games more often? Well, I actually like the home viewing experience much more because you can see a lot of things and get clarity on certain things that you might not get if you're at the game. So that's why, for those who keep asking me that. Yeah, a lot of you guys thought that was a fumble. Yeah. I was really surprised Andy Reid did not challenge that because I saw the field goal team get set up and I saw Andy moving close to the refs. I was like, okay, he's pulling the flag, but no, he never did. That was a big surprise to me. So, but hey, didn't seem to impact the game a whole lot. As far as the Chiefs offense goes specifically, I do want to go to Travis Kelce. He had his best game of the year, 10 catches for 90 yards. Travis Kelce has been playing much better lately. Against the Chargers, this is the last 4 games. Against the Chargers, 7 catches for 89 yards. 2 other targets didn't connect with him. Against the Saints on Monday night, 9 catches, 70 yards, 1 other target to Kelce. Against the 49ers, 4 of 5 when it comes to receptions and targets, 17 yards. So a really quiet game there. And then against the Raiders, 10 catches, 90 yards, 12 targets. And he got his first touchdown of the season. And by the way, he also owns the record for most receptions all time against the Las Vegas Raiders, surpassing Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates right behind Gonzalez. The Raiders seem to have a bad history of defending tight ends. Is that fair to say? I think it is. They just don't have the best history of defending tight ends. But yeah, maybe they'll figure out one of these. I mean, they've got a great tight end right now themselves, so hopefully they can figure that out. Whenever that time comes, whenever that'll be with the Raiders. I do want to go to Kareem Hunt because I don't think Kareem Hunt had the best game statistically speaking. He had 21 carries for 59 yards. So obviously that's even less than a 3-yard. That's less than 3 yards per carry, is it not? I believe it is. Let me expand this a little bit. Yeah, that was 2.8 yards per carry. Trying to do the math in my head while I talk. Not the best game from Kareem Hunt, but he did get into the end zone on the opening drive of the game, which was very key. He has scored a touchdown in 3 straight games now. He has not been used a whole lot out of the backfield when it comes to the passing game, and that's fine because he's doing a lot. I do think the Chiefs are relying on him maybe a little too much. 27 carries against the Saints, 22 against the 49ers, and 21 against the Raiders. Listen, if Kareem Hunt goes down, who do you go to? I mean, Pacheco, yeah, he's going to come back, but I would prefer Pacheco and Hunt together. That's what I would prefer because that'll take a lot of the workload off of Kareem Hunt, and then we can see Pacheco and Hunt go work together. And that's something we have never seen before. Because I'm sure during the Pacheco era here in Kansas City, the young era, the young run of this era in Pacheco, some people kind of wonder, what would it be like if Kareem Hunt was also in Kansas City with him? And now we're going to get that matchup or that duo. So I just hope that the Chiefs can maybe take care of Kareem Hunt. Let Samaje Perine get involved, man. Let Carson Steele. How many? I don't even think they gave the ball to Carson Steele much. Maybe just a couple of times. Yeah, 2 times for 6 yards. And again, I get it. As a team, the Chiefs did not run very well. 29 times, 82 yards. Not very good. But I think if you let Carson Steele get a little bit more involved, take some of those carries away from Kareem Hunt, maybe take 5 or 6 away, let Samaje Perine even get involved for about, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 yards or 5 carries. I would like to I'd like to see it. Yeah, I did see that, Robert, that he feels like Hunt's okay with the workload. I'm not saying Hunt is not capable of it, but let's be look, what is any 29, 30, 31-year-old running back, what are they going to say? Oh, yeah, I don't like this workload. I think they need to take care of me and not give me the ball much. I mean, no running back is going to say that. But, and by the way, and I know I keep saying this, but again, like Kareem Hunt coming back to Kansas City, everyone knows the story with him. I think he's really trying to do the most with his second chance. Like if the Chiefs are asking him to do something, he's not in a position to say no. Like they're giving you the second chance that no one ever thought would ever be given. So he's always going to say yes anyway. So I think that's something that just to think about there. But listen, I like Samaje Perine. I think he's done some good things in the past. Andy Reid even mentioned he's like, yeah, he kicked our ass a couple of times when he was in with Cincinnati. So let him get involved a little bit. But I'm telling you, man, and I don't know what's going on with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, they reactivated him, but he's still inactive in games. That's kind of odd, but whatever. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's in the doghouse. I don't know. But once Pacheco comes back, I would love to see, both of them get anywhere from 12 to 15 carries a game. That's not something Andy Reid does, but that would be very different, and that could seriously be a difference maker. And by the way, keep in mind with DeAndre Hopkins, who I get to even talk about on this podcast, this is a guy that once he gets more involved, he's going to become a big difference maker for this football team. By the way, I apologize. My camera is right there. I'm not used to this laptop mic. I'm used to looking straight up here. So that's why I keep looking up. And then I realize, I'm looking at a wall right now talking to people, even though the camera's right there. Again, I didn't bring all my podcast equipment with me. I haven't used this mic in a very long time. But anyway, think about this with DeAndre Hopkins. This is someone that only had 2 practices with the Chiefs. So he didn't get involved much. I even questioned during the week, how much is he really going to get involved? Now, in the amount that he did play, he was targeted 3 times, caught 2 passes for 29 yards. That's not bad, especially considering Kelsey stepped up in this one and got a big chunk of the receiving yards for the Chiefs. Definitely hit the over when I said under. Yeah, I'm the idiot who said the under on that one. And not only that, I think there was one, the one they could not connect. Mahomes overthrew Hopkins on that play right there. I think that's one of those situations where once Hopkins and Mahomes get more practice reps in, they'll be able to get a good feel, especially Hopkins. He'll get a good feel for when to expect those passes and where he needs to be. If he was expecting that pass to be at that location there, I think, and listen, Mahomes has got to do a better job of locating that better as well, help your receivers out in that situation. I think the more practice reps they'll get, they'll figure each other out. They'll get a good feel for, who's going to be where and where to expect the ball, where to expect the pass and all that stuff. They'll figure that soon. They'll figure it out. There's no way they don't. I mean, these are 2 phenomenal football players who are coming together. Future Hall of Famers, mind you. Yeah, and Jackson, you mentioned Juju. Yeah, and listen, he's got a hamstring injury, so that's not something that should take very long. And Juju is someone who has played well coming back for Kansas City. Keep one thing in mind. I do want to touch on this. Alex Smith, who's part of ESPN now, and he was on their morning show yesterday, NFL Countdown. I apologize. I don't know the names of all these shows. I just know the people who are on them. Alex Smith made a very interesting comment. I didn't agree with all of it, but Alex Smith said that he feels like this is the best season Patrick Mahomes has the best he's looked and he's doing a lot with very little. I'm paraphrasing some of that stuff right there. I don't agree this is the best that Patrick Mahomes has looked. You can't say that when he's leading the league in interceptions right now. And again, not all of them are his fault, but every quarterback has that where it bounces off the hands of a teammate or it's tipped by a defender. Every single quarterback has that. But when Alex Smith said he's doing a lot with very little, I do agree with that part. I think you gotta. How do I say this here? Because I don't want to make it sound like I'm making excuses. There are no excuses for this. We've seen in the past you can't ever make excuses for injuries, and I think the Chiefs of all teams are proving that right now. Do I think the offense would be much better if everybody was healthy? Of course, but unfortunately, that's not the reality. And unfortunately, the Chiefs, they're that team this year that's dealt with the injury bug probably worse than any other team. It just doesn't reflect on the win-loss record. Um, when Alex Smith is saying this is the best that he's looked, and listen, Alex Smith is guilty of this here. Is there some bias because he played for the Chiefs and he was teammates with Patrick Mahomes? Of course. Does Teddy Bruschi do the same thing? Well, I don't think any of Teddy Bruschi's teammates are playing anymore. But did Teddy Bruschi have a lot of those comments about his Patriots teammates? Of course he did. I'm sure Randy Moss, Rex Ryan, all those guys have said, more positive and encouraging things about a player, even when they maybe did not deserve it. So I think that's where Alex Smith's coming from when he says that kind of thing. But I get where he's coming from. Like, this is a team that's 7-0. And yes, the defense is taking the charge on this, but no, I don't agree that the defense is necessarily quote unquote carrying the team. I just think they're right now the number one reason for the team's success right now. Because when you look at the Chiefs offense, and I haven't even gotten to the best part about yesterday's game, Kansas City was 3 of 4 in the red zone. The Chiefs drastically have improved in the red zone. When you look at coming off the bye, the Chiefs were the 4th worst red zone offense in the NFL. Coming off the bye, when they were playing the San Francisco 49ers in the red zone, the Chiefs were 4 of 5. Against the Raiders, the Chiefs were 3 of 4. That is a pretty damn good success rate right there. You're getting at least 75% in both of those games combined. So the Chiefs, in the last 2 weeks, they're one of the better red zone offenses in the NFL. So this is definitely a big change. Andy Reid said in his first press conference after the bye, Andy Reid said that is the one thing he emphasized with the Chiefs is that the red zone offense has to improve. So far, so damn good. Really, really good. So that was encouraging to see. Now, that's not even my favorite stat of the game. My favorite stat of the game, Kansas City's third down success rate, very high. They were 12 of 16 in this game. And for comparison's sake, the Raiders were 6 of 13 in this one. And by the way, the 12 of 16 is very misleading because the last play of the game was a third down play, and it was a QB kneel. So statistically speaking, that does count as a third down stop for the Raiders defense. Congratulations, Raiders defense. You got a third down stop on a QB kneel. So in actuality, if you have a pair of eyes and watch the games and don't just read the box score, you will know the Chiefs were actually 12 of 15 on third down. That is not easy to do, especially on the road. This Chiefs offense, are they lighting up the scoreboard? Is Patrick Mahomes getting 300, 350, 400 yards? Is he getting 3, 4, 5 touchdown games? No, not even close to that. But they're doing enough to win. And look, how much is DeAndre Hopkins going to change things? Xavier Worthy, the more experience he gets. Juju, when he comes back from his hamstring injury, and when Pacheco comes back in a few weeks, how much will that change? I don't know. I thought the Chiefs were going to put up at least 30 in this one, and they didn't. Came close, but didn't. I think the more that DeAndre Hopkins gets involved, and here's the good news. You have Monday Night Football coming up next. So you do have that extra day, and that can only help. I know it's just one day, but I think the Chiefs will take that right now because they do need to find a way to get DeAndre Hopkins far more involved. The one bad thing I'll say about Mahomes in this one here, in the game against the Raiders yesterday, he threw a 50-50 ball to Xavier Worthy on a go route when he had DeAndre Hopkins wide open on a slant in the middle of the field. Would have gone for big yardage if he hit Hopkins there. And again, I think part of it is not expecting Hopkins to be open in that situation. And the more they spend time together, they'll be able to figure things out. So that's something that I expect the Chiefs, specifically Mahomes and Hopkins, to figure out. Listen, Kelsey's starting to play a little bit better lately. Got off to a very slow start. He's playing better. I think Xavier Worthy gradually getting better every game. Juju's coming back. This is not an offense that, the defense can prepare for everyone. We were talking about this with Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown. And I think there's some optimism that Hollywood Brown could come back in the playoffs, maybe before the playoffs. We'll see. But this is a football team that's looking really good right now. And once they get some players back, and they're expected to get a couple of guys back, it's only going to help. It's only going to help. Before I get into the Joshua Uche trade, let me get the name of the band right. I always mix up. Is it Starship Jefferson or Jefferson Starship? It's Jefferson Starship. Jefferson Starship, which, by the way, classic rock band, one of the more underrated classic rock bands, in my opinion. Mickey Thomas of Jefferson Starship, he was at the game and he performed the national anthem for the game before the Chiefs and Raiders kicked off. And I was like, oh, cool, Jefferson Starship. I think they've got some underrated music. I think that they're not one of the bands that a lot of people talk about when it comes to classic rock, 70s, 80s, early 90s. People don't talk about that era of music. And I'm listening to Mickey Thomas sing the national anthem. And I got my phone out because I want to capture the moment where he's he says home of the Chiefs. I wanted to capture that moment there, which I did, but did not upload because you kind of can't hear it. And I'll explain why you can't in a moment. So he's singing the anthem and I'm listening and I'm thinking in my head, wait a minute, did he just skip an entire verse? But he kept continuing and I gave him the benefit of the doubt. And then, turn up your speakers, this happened. Jeez! Okay, so that was Mickey Thomas of Jefferson Starship, who butchered the national anthem. Look, by the way, if you heard towards the end there, the reason you could not hear Home of the Chiefs very well is because everyone started singing along with the singer, because he clearly didn't know the words. Listen, I want to be very careful here because I think, you have to be careful if you're going to accuse someone of something. He did not look like them himself. He just didn't. I think he may have had too much tequila before that game. I mean, listen, we're in Vegas after all. I don't know. He did not seem like himself when he was singing. And it looked like he was laughing. First off, for anyone that was at the game, did it seem like he was laughing during the anthem? Because he kind of did. It kind of looked like he was laughing and was trying to hide that. We saw something very similar at the All-Star game. I think was it the All-Star game or the Home Run Derby? One of those events. I think it was the Home Run Derby, where the national anthem singer was completely drunk and she just was not hitting any of the pitches for the national anthem. And a lot of people were like, what's going on here? Why is she struggling through this performance? Listen, you have one job. You're a singer. I mean, these performers, they stand in front of an audience and they're performing several songs in a short span. I don't know what it's like to stand in front of a very, very large crowd, tens and thousands of people, and sing, especially the national anthem, because if you mess up the national anthem and If it gets talked about, if it goes viral, then you have to deal with people feeling like you disrespected the country, the military, all these things. I don't know. I mean, did you really think it was a smart idea to maybe consume something before the national anthem? Allegedly, allegedly. I don't know. Frank says he was hanging with Joe Namath. Probably was. He probably was. I don't know, man. Like, and look, I don't know the selection process for the national anthem. I know in Vegas it's a big deal because even when the Raiders are bad, you still have a lot of people going to the games. You're always going to have a full house because people are always going to travel to see their favorite teams. So I think in a place like Vegas, it's difficult to be able to be accepted to do the national anthem because if you're, no disrespect to any musician out there, but if you're like a regional performer and you're not well known, they're going to turn away your application for the national anthem. They're going to be like, dude, sorry, we don't even know who you are. We gotta always have the big dogs doing this thing. And I get it. It's Vegas. You always got to go big with these kinds of things, but you're given this opportunity to do it in front of a packed crowd in a great stadium. It's like, come on, brother. You got to be better than that. You got to be way better than that. Okay, let's get into the Joshua Uche trade here because this one kind of surprised me. I saw yesterday the NFL insiders were saying that Joshua Uche was inactive for yesterday's Patriots versus Jets game because the Patriots were looking to move Joshua Uche. Well, he ended up coming to Kansas City, and that one was a surprise to me. My first question here is, what does that say about some of the guys on the team right now, specifically with Mike Dana and Charles Omenihu? Because Mike Dana, he's been dealing with an injury recently, and Andy Reid did say that he's making progress, as well as Juju Smith-Schuster. But he hasn't been practicing for a couple of weeks. It's a pectoral injury for Mike Dana. And then Charles Omenihu, who tore his ACL in the AFC Championship game, which is late in the season. There's never a good time for an injury. It's just even worse when it's at the end of the season because you're so close to playing in a Super Bowl. But unfortunately, that can carry over to the following season. So you miss out on the Super Bowl, and you're missing out on the 7-0 start to the season. Now, I did see Omenihu tweet, and he welcomed in Uche with open arms, bringing him in here. So I don't know what this really says about Omenihu. I know Omenihu is pretty optimistic about his return. I know he's doing these online web series on YouTube documenting his comeback and everything. But in general, I just don't know. Excuse me. I just don't know what this really means for Kansas City when it comes to their defensive front. Because here's the other thing with Uche to keep in mind. Maybe not specifically with Uche, but the Chiefs traded for Cam Thomas right before the deadline to cut your roster to 53 players. So here's what Kansas City's front looks like right now. The starter, and I'm just looking just at defensive ends alone. You have George Karlaftis. You have Mike Dana, who's hurt at the moment. You have Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who has had an underrated season. He's doing some things that don't show up on the stat sheet. You have Malik Herring. We don't really see much of him. You also have Cam Thomas. Again, I mentioned Cam Thomas. You traded for him before the regular season got underway. But we haven't seen a lot of Cam Thomas. And his frustration with Arizona was that they're not using him enough. And he's not being used enough. He's hardly being used in Kansas City. Maybe he's okay with that because at the end of it, he will get a Super Bowl ring. I don't know. I don't really know. But now you're bringing in Joshua Uche. Does that mean Mike Dana is going on IR? I hope not. Or are you just trying to do whatever you can to beef up your defense? If it's the latter, I like that move. I really do. Now, if it's the former, I can still appreciate the move because you're doing something to find a way to keep your defensive front strong going into the second half of the season. How do you guys feel about this Joshua Uche move? Because I don't know. Like, I'm not I'm not 100%. I'm not against it. I don't think it's a terrible move, but I'm not. This is not a move that I was expecting. If anything, I was hoping for offensive line help, but then like, who are you going after right now that's available? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure who you look at right now. Yeah, Afraid mentions the rotation and guys will be fresh. That's a huge one right there. Um, you know what's really interesting about Uche, and I saw this from Pro Football Focus. Let me pull that up real quickly here because I don't want to. I accidentally played the Mickey Thomas national anthem again. I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe it was Pro Football Focus that put this out there. He has, since 2022, he has a 17.5% pressure rate. That is the fifth best in the NFL during that span. Now, that doesn't reflect his stat sheet very well because when you look at Joshua Uche in terms of his career stats in the NFL, not necessarily the best. They're not like eye glowing stats. He did have one good season in 2022 where he had 11 and a half sacks. But outside of that, 2020, one sack, 2021, three sacks, 2023, three sacks, 2024, two sacks. That's obviously this season. So he's only started one game. He's only started 4 games in his career. So this is not somebody that the Patriots were using much of during their time when he was in Foxborough. How much of that is going to change in Kansas City? I don't know. Now, the good news here is the Chiefs are not giving up much. So this could be a low risk, high reward type of addition here. That's what this might turn into. And again, considering the Chiefs defense and the type of game they had yesterday, and not just yesterday, but all year long, you got to feel pretty good about Kansas City in general and where they're going defensively because they're going to do everything they can to keep you in games. And by the way, you got to appreciate Brett Veach and what he's doing. He's doing everything he can to keep this defense good. And Joshua Uche gonna, probably be a big part of your rotation. But look at this right here. Check this out. The Chiefs, they go and get Joshua Uche, an underrated pass rusher, and they go get DeAndre Hopkins, a great future Hall of Fame wide receiver who was in a bad situation. They gave up a conditional 4th-round pick and a 6th-round pick to get these two right here. Let me just say something about Brett Veach. The moves that Brett Veach is making right now, you got to appreciate. The moves that Brett Veach is making right now are these are the type of moves you expect from a 500 football team. What Brett Veach is doing is trying to make sure this team three-peats. Brett Veach is doing everything he can to make sure this team completes its quest in making history and three-peating. Forget about the undefeated season. That's not happening. And if I'm wrong, I'll give away a jersey. Screen record that, by the way. But I'm telling you right now, this is a football team that is never going to be complacent because of Brett Veach. They're going to do everything possible to come through and get big players. I've never seen the Chiefs this active before the trade deadline. I can't recall the last time. When was the last time you could recall the Chiefs being active in the trade deadline? Because I can't think about it right now. I can't recall that at the moment. I really can't. The way I see it, I mean, the Chiefs have made moves before at the trade deadline, don't get me wrong, but never in a situation where they would be big-time buyers. And because of how some of these trades go, it can be a buyer's market, meaning you don't have to pay a whole lot to get what you want. So this is a big move by Brett Veach. 2 big moves in the span of a week, going out there, getting DeAndre Hopkins and getting Joshua Uche. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to get more involved in the Tampa Bay game. I think he's going to have actually a solid game. I would not be surprised if Hopkins goes for 60, maybe 70 yards in the next game. And that would be a huge step forward in his second game with the Chiefs. getting a full week of practice, a little more than a full week because it's going to be a Monday Night Football game. So you got an extra day to prepare for that game. Listen, is there a better general manager than Brett Veach right now? I've said this many times in the past, but I'll say it again. Brett Veach, the things that Brett Veach is doing, we expected from Scott Pioli. Remember when Scott Pioli came in from New England and everybody thought the Patriot way was coming? People thought that Scott Pioli was going to create the Patriot way in Kansas City. Not even close. The Patriot way is what Brett Veach is doing right now. I mean, is this not the Patriot way where you win so many Super Bowls in a short span? That's what the Chiefs are doing. They have the best 5-year span in NFL history. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, the Chiefs they played more games. Yeah. They're going to keep adding more games over the years. So there are going to be a lot of records that are going to be broken in the future, whether we like it or not. That's just the way things work. I think, I agree with you. Mac Veach is in an island by himself. I know a lot of people are pretty, they've always had good things to say about the Eagles GM, Howie Roseman, I think is his name. He's done a really good job, but how many Super Bowls have you won with Howie Roseman? You've won several Super Bowls in the Brett Veach era. And by the way, let's not forget this. Brett Veach trades away Tyreek Hill, and everybody crucified him for trading Tyreek Hill. People thought that the Chiefs would never be successful ever again without Tyreek Hill. How about that pitch from Travis Kelce? Yeah, that was an interesting one. So there's a weird rule about advancing the ball after a fumble, but because it was not Samaje Perine's fumble, he was able to advance it. That was interesting. I did not know that rule. So I guess you can advance it on a fumble. It's just, I don't know. Like, I guess that was not a caused fumble. I don't know. The wording on that seems weird, but that was the explanation that was provided by Football Zebras on Twitter. So, excuse me. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, pardon all these awkward pauses because my voice is shot from the game. I do have one other thing I want to mention about the Chiefs-Raiders game. I forgot to mention this before the Josh Uche topic. Listen, I've been to Allegiant Stadium a few times now. Been there for a couple of games. Been there for a concert. It's a great stadium. I love it. If the Chiefs do decide to build a brand new stadium, whether it's in Kansas or Missouri, I hope they they copy some of the things that Allegiant Stadium's done. They spent a whole week using their practice facility for the Super Bowl. So surely the Chiefs have spent a lot of time trying to learn what works and what doesn't work for Allegiant Stadium. It's a $1.9 billion stadium. Look at that. Look at that field right there. Look at that field right there. Can you at least pretend to give a shit about your field? Please? How can you have a $1.9 billion stadium in Las Vegas of all places and let your field look like that? How is this acceptable? And here's another question. Why does the NFL allow this? In what world is this okay? How is this even allowed? That seriously looks like they just let animals out of a zoo and they just took a dump all across the field and they just smeared it all over. Apologies for the image there, but that's really what it looks like. I call it like I see it. I mean, listen, the Raiders have that great black and silver combination. It just looks horrible. It looks awful. It looked awful last year. It looked awful the year before, the game where the Chiefs did the snow globe play. And it looked awful this year. Kareem Hunt even slipped on a few of these. You saw a couple of slips on the field. How do you allow this to happen? Like, what NFL commissioner allows this? I guarantee you, if the NFL actually fined teams at least 7 figures for not taking care of their field for games, that would not happen. You would never see a field look like that ever again. I don't know why. Like the NFL's priorities are so weird that they don't. You want to talk about player safety? Let's start with stadiums like Allegiant Stadium that come out with crap on their field. How do you allow that? And someone mentioned that, oh, they had a college football game. That doesn't matter. I've seen high school fields look way better than that. I mean, you can't allow that. It's almost like you purchase a very expensive sport, like you get a Ferrari, and you never wash the car. It's like, what's the point of having a Ferrari if you're going to let it look like shit the entire time you drive it? That makes no sense. Allegiant Stadium is like a Ferrari. It really is. But you can't let it look like that, man. That is awful and pathetic. That's just bad. That's embarrassing. I don't know how that's allowed in the NFL. I mean, I agree with you, Lamar. I think that's definitely a Mark Davis Raiders issue. It's also an NFL issue for constantly allowing them to do that kind of thing. Like, because if the NFL doesn't say anything, then teams are going to say, oh, okay, must be acceptable. Let's move on with our handy dandy day, because they're not going to do anything if the NFL doesn't say anything. That's just the way it works, unfortunately. All right, those are my thoughts on everything related to the Chiefs and Raiders game from yesterday. Apologies again for not doing a podcast, but wow, a lot of you guys watching during the day. I appreciate you guys, man. You guys are awesome. Maybe we got to do more afternoon, morning podcasts. I don't know. I don't expect a lot of people to be commenting and watching during the day, but that's what it's turned into. So I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys always bring it. I do want to go around the NFL and talk about some of the games we saw. I do want to start with Jets and Patriots because I mentioned that they look pathetic in this game. Look, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is completely at fault here, but you got to look better than this. Davante Adams went from a 2-6 team to another 2-6 team. And I saw this on social media. Someone saying that they're not joking when they say this. They're suggesting that the Chiefs and the Bills to aggressively pursue Davante Adams and that the Jets should trade Davante Adams. The guy who just got traded from the Raiders might get traded again. I don't think that happens. Can someone explain to me the obsession with this Packers reunion in New York? I jokingly refer to them as the New York Packers. How many Super Bowls did the Packers win with this group? Zero. So why are they going to suddenly win in New York when they're all far more older? When Rodgers is 40? Why is it suddenly going to change in New York if it didn't work out in Green Bay when everyone was younger? It doesn't make sense to me. How does any of that make sense? That doesn't make sense at all. Mac, I appreciate you bringing this up. Hey, appreciate you, Matthew. I always appreciate the people across the pond. Man, you guys are awesome. You guys always stay up late or wake up early to watch these games too. And then some of you guys watch me after the game. So that makes it even cooler. Max said, can we talk about the Saints guy trying to break Justin Herbert's leg? Okay, I saw this, and this actually really pissed me off. Let me Saints defender let me get the name of this player. Again, I apologize. I've been on vacation, so I haven't had a chance to look at everything here. I do give a lot of props to Bradley Bozeman, the center for the Chargers. Did what any offensive lineman would do, which is go after the person that's trying to hurt your own quarterback. I mean, offensive linemen are very protective about that kind of thing. Who was the defensive lineman? It doesn't even say in this article. By the way, Colin Saunders, former Kansas City Chief, now with the Saints. And, I think the Swifties are kind of behind Colin Saunders because of his connection to Taylor Swift, with his brother being a backup dancer for Taylor Swift during her concerts. But I saw Colin Saunders defend the defensive lineman Nathan Shepard, who you can clearly see is twisting Herbert's ankle and is trying to pull him down and is not letting go and is trying to twist it. Everything's on camera. Everything is on camera. Remember when the Steelers and the Browns had a brawl and Mason Rudolph did the whole like, oh, I didn't do anything. I was just minding my own business. I didn't do anything. And then with the power of social media, people go through everything from different angles, replays, all that stuff, and they slow-mo everything. And you can actually see Mason Rudolph. He goes below the belt to one of the Browns players. And like any human being would, that Browns player, I think it was Myles Garrett, retaliated. And then the Steelers offensive linemen, they retaliated because they thought Myles Garrett was just being a punk going after Mason Rudolph. And Mason Rudolph had to do some serious PR damage after that. That is never a good position to be in. Nathan Shepard is trying to twist Justin Herbert's ankle. And then Bradley Bozeman comes running in, knocks him down, and is actually going after him. Doesn't look like he's letting go. And you can see Nathan Shepard with his hand going below the belt, trying to grab his junk there, which is a pretty Bush League move. Unfortunately, the NFL is probably going to fine Bradley Bozeman because the NFL is stupid like that. Nathan Shepard should never be allowed to play football ever again. That is seriously some bullshit right there. You are trying to injure another person. I mean, this is not you trying to sack someone really hard. This is you trying to intentionally injure another person who's already dealing with an ankle injury, by the way. I don't know if that was the same ankle injury, but you're doing exactly that. That's just complete horseshit. I don't know how that's even acceptable. That really pissed me off. That really did. So I hope the NFL does the right thing and don't fine Bradley Bozeman, and they come down with some serious punishments on Nathan Shepard, because that was BS. That is not acceptable at all. Hey, the Chiefs got a little bit of help here in the AFC. The Cleveland Browns using Jameis Winston. Yeah, Jameis Winston. He played in this game, filling in for Deshaun Watson, who is out for the season with a ruptured Achilles. They took down the Baltimore Ravens. So during the week, a lot of people were saying, who's the scarier football team? And there were a lot of people in the national media said that the Bills and maybe even the Ravens are more scarier than the Chiefs. Well, this scary Ravens football team just lost to a backup quarterback named Jameis Winston. That's what happened to the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, game on the line, can't come through. Once again, shocker. Lamar Jackson chokes with the game on the line. Derrick Henry, I don't know why they didn't run with him more often. He was having a damn good game. Zay Flowers played lights out. Isaiah Likely, maybe not his best, but Lamar Jackson's got to play way better, especially with the game on the line. And I don't know where he stands in the MVP conversation right now, but my God, man. Listen, he might still be in the MVP running fine, but after that, I think that right there is a true example of why the Ravens don't go very far in the playoffs. What are they, 2-4 with Lamar? Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Debner, I appreciate you commenting that. We already went over that. That's definitely going to be a good trade for Kansas City, I think. Not one that I expected, but one that could pay off in the long run. So we'll see how that pans out later on. I just lost the there we go. What are other games? Oh, by the way, the team to beat in the AFC, the Cincinnati Bengals, they have now dropped to 3-5 on the season. They allowed a score from the Eagles every single drive of the second half. Imagine that. The Eagles got 27 points in the second half. That's bad. On the road. That is not easy to do. They outscored the Bengals 27-7 on the road. By the way, Cincinnati, the team to beat in the AFC, allegedly, they're 0-4 at home. Team to beat in the AFC, 0-4. Yeah. Cool. The Dolphins, they got Tua back in this one, but fell by 1 point to the Arizona Cardinals. Tua wasn't great. He wasn't terrible either, but I mean, Devon Achane, they don't get him the ball more when they should have. Tyreek Hill, 6 receptions for 72 yards. Okay, that's not bad, but when you have Tyreek Hill, you expect a better production, don't you? So I don't know what's going on with the Miami Dolphins, but they are not looking like themselves this year, even before the Tua injury. And I'm starting to think that's a team joining the Bengals, joining the Raiders, joining the Jets, and hitting the panic button right now. Let's see, what other games were there? I think there was one other thing I wanted to get into. Oh, this one I definitely wanted to touch on here. So the Broncos, there was a cornerback for the Panthers. He was not very happy after the game. He actually confronted Broncos head coach Sean Payton for going for a fake field goal in the fourth quarter when they were up 28-7. I don't understand players who complain about this kind of thing. If you do not want someone to score, if you don't want someone to succeed on a fake, here's an idea: stop them. You're a football player. You're not a pansy. Don't get all sensitive because of a fake field goal. They threw you off. Don't be mad about it. What's the quote? Don't hate the player, hate the game. Or in this case, don't hate the coach. Tyreek Hill wants to come back to Kansas City. What do you think about that? Yeah, I mean, you can tell he wants to come back to Kansas City with his cryptic tweets and posting Chiefs highlights. Like, yeah, he wants to come back to Kansas City. But yeah, but going back to this topic here, if you don't like a team running up the scoreboard or running trick plays when they're up by 3 scores in the fourth quarter, here's an idea: stop them. Stop them. And I always think it's funny that, yeah, Will, we went over that, talking about Burrow choking too. Yeah, that or chalking, as you put it. I'm being facetious, by the way, Will. It's all good. But as far as like running up the score and all these other things, I mean, I remember the Saints. I think it was the Saints who did something similar when it was the fourth quarter and they went for a fake QB kneel. I mean, that was silly, but hey, there was some trash talking going on, and I think they made them pay for it. That was what they did there. So again, to me, it's funny when athletes get all sensitive about running up the scoreboard. These are athletes, you know, in college and in high school, they were the shit. Everyone knew who they were, and they would even, you know, pick on the nerds in school. And then, you know, when they're on the wrong side of a blowout where, you know, the opposing team's running up the score, they get all sensitive about it. Cry me a river. Cry me a river, man. Hey, Justin, I do appreciate your Chiefs question, and we'll get into that. We're just not going to do it on this podcast. We're going to do it during our breakdown podcast, which will be later in the week, and I'll get into when that'll be exactly. The last thing I did want to go over, 49ers and Cowboys Monday Night Football. Ended up being an entertaining fourth quarter there. The 49ers decided to not cover CeeDee Lamb for whatever reason. That was interesting. But the 49ers, they prevented another potential collapse. Oh, by the way, before that, I do want to get into the Bears-Commanders thing with Jaden Daniels doing what he did, or Jalen Daniels, excuse me, connecting on that. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Jaden. I get Jaden and Jalen mixed up. Jalen's a KU quarterback who is not doing really well. But anyway, he had a great Hail Mary play there where he got away from the pass rush. He evaded those guys and found a way to step up in the pocket. That was impressive. But then there's that defender for Chicago who was taunting fans when the snap happened. I think that's silly, but I don't think that's why they allowed the Hail Mary. I mean, he was able to get in on time too, and I think he even deflected the pass that went for a touchdown. Unfortunately, because you were taunting and it was your hand causing the deflection to go to another receiver in the end zone, it does look really bad on you. So here's an idea. Wait until after the final whistle to taunt the fans. It's really that simple. Anyway, going back to Cowboys and 49ers. I don't know what the realistic expectation is with the Cowboys moving forward with Dak Prescott. I really don't. At this rate, it's like, okay, now you're 3-4 on the season. The AFC, not as competitive this year compared to the NFC. So you're in a very tough conference right now and a tough division. The Eagles, And the Commanders, they're both looking good. And then the Giants, they're bad, but their defense can definitely cause some issues. And the Giants are like the perfect trap game team. They really are. Like if they can give their quarterback the protection he needs, he's going to come through for them. He really will. I just think that a lot of times, and we'll see what the Giants do tonight, but if they can protect Daniel Jones a little more, they'll be a better football team. They lead the NFL in sacks on defense, I believe. So, you got to be better than that. But I do want to go over one other thing with the 49ers post game. So you guys all know how Sunday Night Football works. They interview a couple of the players after the game. It was Brock Purdy, George Kittle, and somebody else. I don't know who that other player was. I don't remember. Maybe Devo, whoever. Nick Bosa crashes the post-game interview for 2 seconds, and he just points at his hat, and his hat says, "Make America Great Again." Obviously, he's making a political statement. That's funny because I remember another 49ers player who got quote unquote political, and a lot of people had stuff to say about that guy. Colin Kaepernick, of course. The people who defended Colin Kaepernick are the same ones criticizing Nick Bosa. And the same people who criticize Nick Bosa are the same people who are defending Nick Bosa. I'm sorry, the people who criticize Kaepernick are the same ones defending Bosa. See, the hypocrisy works both ways. I've said it for so many years. Like, that's just the way things go. I guarantee you, all the people who are like, "Oh, don't protest or don't talk politics while you're on the clock," they're not saying the same thing right now. I mean, you're seeing athletes be political. I saw a college football player lift his shirt up and it said, "Make America Great Again." Which is fine. I don't care. Speak your mind. That's the platform you have, and that's how you want to use it. Go for it. Does not bother me one bit. But what I do take issue with is, why is it okay for certain players to not speak on politics, whether they're on the clock or not? And by the way, the whole on the clock thing is another hypocrisy thing, because there were a lot of NFL players that did Black Lives Matter videos during their own time, and they still got crucified for it. So, obviously, listen, we all know how society works. When Harrison Butker says something, the left is going to say, "No, we do not want you to speak on politics." When Nick Bosa says something, "No, we don't want you to speak on it." When Greg Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs, when he speaks out against Trump, the right does not want to hear it. The right does not want to hear it. They want you to stick to sports. It's always stick to sports unless we agree. There might be a very small percentage of people, and I don't really see it, but there's maybe a very tiny percentage of people who will, be consistent about it both ways through, like me. I don't really know. Like, again, I get we're in a very difficult time where everyone's opinions politically becomes magnified. So if you have an opinion, like Harrison Butker, because he's been very vocal about his stances on things, whenever Butker has a bad game, it's going to get called out by a lot of people on the left. And if he has monster performances, the right's going to praise him more than they would just because they agree politically. I don't understand people who become a fan of a player because of politics. I've never understood that. You like someone even more now because of their politics? Why? Like, I don't get it. I like Harrison Butker the same way I liked him before. I think that guy's the best kicker in the NFL. Now, he hasn't been in position to make massive kicks this season. He's only had one, and that was against the Bengals. But it's not like, my opinion of Butker has always been the same. I think he's been a damn good kicker for a long time. I think last year during the season, he proved to be the best kicker in the NFL. And now suddenly it's always funny when someone speaks out politically, people all of a sudden have a different opinion about that person because of their political stance. Why? Like, how does someone's political stance put a dent on their performance, their ability to perform on the field? That doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense. I've never understood this. Listen, you guys know me. I was not even born here in the United States of America. I think there are a lot of great things about this country. Is this country perfect? Hell no, it's not. There are a lot of issues in this country. but this is still the place to be. And there's a reason why a lot of people want to come here. I have no issues with it. Listen, I'm going to read out some names now. Pamela, Stephen, Teresa, Mickey, Natalie, Michael, Matthew, Blake, several of you guys here, Justin, and many more who are here that I may have not mentioned. I apologize. A lot of you guys probably have your own political opinions, and that's fine. As long as you truly do believe in them and it's not influenced by anyone else, I can respect your political stance. I can respect it even more if you can not ignore opposing views and also be willing to listen to everyone at the same time, because this country doesn't do that. So I do encourage people to vote and speak up if they choose. Some people don't want to because they do fear the backlash, and I can understand that 100%. I don't think anyone should fear backlash. I think they should all stand for what they believe in, and not care about who unfollows them on social media. But to me, it's like, and listen, just for the record, I don't like either candidate. So this is not me trying to persuade people or trying to get people to listen to another side. Not at all. My whole point is, let's drop the hypocrisy, please. You can't do the whole stick to sports thing and then be in favor of people who agree with you. You can't be doing that. You just can't. Come on. Listen, we all know how society works today. Something doesn't age well, or you have the hypocrisy out there, it's always going to get called out. Always. Almost always. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here on this edition of the Chiefs Zone podcast. It is a Las Vegas edition of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Chiefs win. They're 7-0 on the season. Their next game will be exactly a week from tonight, Monday Night Football against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We will break that game down. The podcast will take place Friday, probably Friday late evening, for two reasons. One, I'm still going to be in Sin City, so there will not be a Wednesday podcast. And even if I was home, we would not do a Wednesday podcast anyway, because the Chiefs do not practice Wednesday. So we will not have an injury report to go off of. We'll have more to discuss on Friday than we would on Wednesday, because we'll be able to discuss some things with the Chiefs and look at the injury report when that comes out. So we'll be able to actually talk about the game in depth. I don't want to do a pregame podcast or a breakdown podcast and not go off the injury report, because if we mention a player that we expect to have a big game and then they're on the injury report, then the podcast is going to sound a little weird, especially for those who listen later in the week. So that's how we're going to go about it. We're going to have the podcast Friday afternoon, breaking down the game between the Chiefs and the Bucs. Make sure you guys join me for that one. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me for this edition of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Appreciate everyone who stayed patient with me. Like I said, I was at the game yesterday, so a post-game podcast was just not easy to do last night. By the time I actually got back in my hotel and was able to relax, all of you guys, most of you guys in Kansas City probably were asleep. So had to make an audible, but we made it all work out. I appreciate you guys. I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will talk to you all Friday. Take care.